and being that close to an audience in that intimate setting, that for me was a defining moment in my career too. Like being able to do that and not really thinking about it beforehand. I wasn't really thinking, how am I going to tackle this? I just booked the job.
Your dreams will always require your healing, and you need to know that in order to move forward. If you feel stuck in your creativity, your art, your business, or your life, then it's essential to understand that you are being asked to heal what's in the way of you creating what you dream about. This podcast is all about the relationship between your emotional health and your creativity. I'm Courtney Lancaster, and this is the Heal Create podcast. Welcome to the Heal Create podcast, everyone. I'm Courtney, and I'm so excited for the guest that I have today. I followed him for a while, and his name is Dan Buckley. He's an actor based in the UK, and today we're just going to get his story, which I'm just so excited to dive into. Welcome, Dan.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm so happy and honored to be here, genuinely.
Oh, I'm so glad that you
Genuinely.
are. So we found you because of the Theater Kid TikToks that you or Reels that you were posting. And because if anybody's listening to this podcast, they know that that was like where I met my own creative self, was being a theater kid all throughout high school and college. And there's so many things about theater culture that I think are just such incredibly valuable universal life lessons, but that are also just really unique and funny, and gave me a sense of community and connection. And that is what I feel like you have embodied and like somehow made into these really humorous and relatable bites that I think you're having a lot of success with. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to start with doing like observational comedy that was niche, but I knew, I over on TikTok I had tried to do just like your general sort of like relatable content, but I
Mm,
only really got successful engagement when I made it really niche. And I know people say that's what you're supposed to do and yada yada yada, but I was
yeah.
like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm multifaceted. There's
Yeah.
more to me than just my career and what I do. And so I tried to make, and I've had some videos that have had great success that aren't to do with theatre, but yeah, for sure. Once I made it sort of niche, and when I was doing characters and people that I had seen or had been in various situations, people really enjoyed it, and my peers, who ultimately are the people I want to impress, they're the people I want to get on board, with me as a performer and just as a
Totally.
creator, and they were enjoying it, and that was the biggest sort of like accolade I could get. Really, was my
Yeah.
peers who really knew the industry to be like, this is very accurate and very funny.
It is very accurate. I mean, I don't know, I'm not in the current culture now, but it's very accurate even to my limited few years of experience back in the day. But
Sure.
also it's like, oh my God, I don't know that I've seen this anywhere else. And so I just love everything that you're doing. And you're clearly so incredibly talented. And you have the most
Oh.
impressive list of projects, including, I think I saw something on TikTok about you played Elder Cunningham in the Book of Mormon. Was that in London?
Yeah, so I was in the original London cast, and I was the standby for Elder Cunningham. And so I got to go on and play that role and do that thing, and I'm the first British person to ever play the role, and
Which is
I'll take
incredible.
that accolade. Yeah, and I feel like that, I really latched onto that for a while. I was trying to be very humble about it, but I was like, no, that's something, that's an accomplishment. That is a huge accomplishment. The audition process was rigorous and it was intense, and I was in rehearsals for something else at the time, so my days off were spent traveling down the country to audition, and the panel were amazing and very gracious and generous, and um yeah, and to book the job was just like mind blowing, like
Yeah.
really mind blowing. Such a huge and highly anticipated show to come over. When I first listened to it, um, I didn't love it. When I first ever listened to it, I was still at
It's
college, and I was
different.
like,
Yeah.
meh, just lots of swearing. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just Matt and Trey just being controversial. But then I listened to it again and I was like, oh, wait. I just had
Yeah.
missed so much.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was auditioning for it and I was like, no, this is a dream role. Like I
Yeah.
went from
Oh.
being like, first listen, just like not really taking it in. Second listen, being like, oh wow, no, this is actually really clever. And then auditioning for it and being fully like this, I have to book this job.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't even imagine how much of a dream come true that would be. Yeah, and
Truly.
that was a show that I felt the same way. I was like, I do need to take a shower after seeing this, but it was the most brilliant, one of the most brilliant things I've
But
ever
when
seen.
you, yeah, and of course, when you get into the rehearsal room, and like I was lucky that I was in the original cast, so I literally
Incredible.
Trey Parker directed me. He came when we were doing Ashley and I, who were the first covers for the two leads. He took us on stage and he just did a session with us both, and he said the most important things to me. Casey was great, but like Trey was really the one that really got in my head and really made me understand the energy
Wow.
I needed to provide. And and the more, obviously, during rehearsals and when you read the script and you do all that stuff, you just learn how clever it is. Like, yes, there's shock factors, but like, and they have adapted it, and I haven't seen the adaptation. They've changed it a little bit since the pandemic and since they sort of remounted it, if you will. But I was just so enamored with how they can can basically say, in a nutshell, it doesn't matter what you believe. If you have faith and you have something to believe in, you can have hope, and you can,
Mm,
it can really take you out of a state of despair. And that really is the biggest message that you can take
yes.
from it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's amazing that Trey Parker was the one to really like give you that profound message with that.
Yeah, he was great. He was
So,
so great. Matt never said a word. Matt was the silent one. In rehearsals, like Trey would do all the speaking, and Matt would just like say nothing, and then he would just like whisper into Trey's ear, and then Trey would say what Matt said. But like he was really not very vocal at all. Like just one of these
yeah.
silent geniuses. Just really
Wow.
wonderful to
Yeah.
watch. The dynamic between the two of them was really wonderful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can completely see you embodying like the softness but the strength of like in the way that Josh Gad did, but in a really unique way as well. I'm sure that was incredible and I wish we could watch it.
Well, apparently there is a bootleg out there. There is a bootleg apparently
Oh,
of
okay. I'll
yeah,
have
of that
to be
performance. Yeah,
sneaky and see
which I
it.
didn't realize.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, yeah.
So, what are some of the other? Well, actually, let me start with this question. How did you know that you wanted to be an actor, and where did you begin, like on this journey?
So going way back, I think got the acting itch when I was about 9, and
Hmm.
I didn't have any. I was just very theatrical. I was always putting on shows at home. I was always doing things at home, and doing that thing that a lot of theatre kids do. I had no education. I had no like um, family members push me in that direction, except for I just kept saying, I want to do this, I want to do that. My mom and dad were like, yeah, just do it, do whatever. And I went to an establishment called Stagecoach over here, which is a kind of, I don't know if it's worldwide. I think it's just the UK. Maybe I think it's the UK. It's just like a theatre school that you can go to and you attend every Saturday, and and I went there when I was in my teens, but I did amateur dramatics and I did all that stuff. But like at school, we didn't do drama. We didn't do anything that really fed any of that for me. We did music, and so I sung and stuff, but like everything I was doing acting wise was all outside of school. And eventually I got to the age of 16 and I was like, I want to be an actor. That's what I want to do. And my dad was like, okay, we'll take you out of school then because there's nothing they can offer you.
Hmm.
They, of course, wanted me to stay and said I needed to get a real career and all that stuff. And the stuff that I think they meant well saying, but like, everyone's
Yeah.
heard it from somebody in their life.
Of course. Yeah.
And then I went to college where I did a year just in acting, and then I missed singing. So then I
Yeah.
did. Then I found out about a musical theatre course in London, and so I didn't even audition to get in. I was the first year group that they took on, and I went there for a year, and then I got into an accredited drama school. Where I got my degree, and I went there for 3 years, and that sort of really set me up. But like, I learned as I went. I didn't know anything. I really didn't know anything. I didn't. All I knew when I was at my first year of training was that Wicked existed and Rent existed, and I only knew Rent existed because I was on holiday in Cornwall with my dad, and on his laptop he had the movie Rent, and I was like, "Why is this on here? What is it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just a film." And I was like, "I don't even know why you have this," but I watched it in the car, and then Seasons of Love
How
came on,
old
and I
were
was like,
you?
"I know this." Uh, 15, maybe
Okay.
16.
Okay.
And I remember Seasons of Love came on, obviously, and I was like, I know this song. I know this song. And then I watched the film. And when Angel died, I was in the car, just like trying not to be hysterically crying, watching this film. And that really informed, like, I was like, I want to do this. Like, this is, I didn't realize
Yeah.
musicals could be, I didn't know movie musicals could be so profound. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, I'd seen some, but like, not. And so I felt like I knew stuff, but I knew nothing. And then I sort of
Yeah.
started learning about everything. I knew the classics, but I was never really a theatre fan because I wasn't really engrossed in it. Does that make
Yes.
sense? I was
Uh-huh.
doing sort of
Absolutely.
amateur
Yeah. It wasn't your
dramatics, and
culture.
I was
Yeah.
doing yeah, and so yeah. Once I went to drama school, I really got an education, and I really started to learn the things I needed to know. And yeah, I was just lucky, lucky and good at what I did that I got an agent and was able to just get seen for shows and start booking work. So it
Yeah.
was a weird sort of
Wow.
yeah, yeah, there was no real defining moment. I don't remember sitting watching a show and being like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I was just
Mm,
always really theatrical. I was always being creative and putting on performances and doing all that stuff. So I guess that was just
sure.
the way I got into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So it was more like a seed that kind of grew over time than like a defining moment.
Yeah. And like my parents just never said no. So
Yeah, that's
like
great.
they were just letting me do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah, totally. Is there anything that you wish that you would have had in your childhood that would have helped you now that maybe you're having to cultivate because you didn't have it or
Well, I don't really know any differently. So
Yes,
I
right.
can't say I wish I knew so, but I think I wish that my high school had had drama. We
Oh,
didn't have
yeah.
any drama.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wish that I could have at least learnt about, because then I did it at college, right? And so then I learnt about technical aspects of the industry. I learnt about what a psych was and what the proscenium was and the different types of staging and the different, all these things. These are just these terms that I've learnt from working, but
Yeah.
I could have really learnt from a younger age and come at
Yeah.
it practically theoretically as well as practically,
Yeah.
because like I'm sure a lot of actors will say that they flunked classes and they just didn't care for the academic side of it, but they loved it when they could do the practical side and really get to grips with the
Yes.
character.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think maybe that would be the only thing I
Sure.
wish had panned out differently. But then had if I had drama at high school, I might not have gone to college that early, and I might not have then found out. Everything for me was just like those
Yeah,
avenues
yeah,
were
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
appearing as I was. So I wouldn't change my trajectory, but but I do think it took them a long time for some reason just to put drama in the syllabus
Totally.
in school here, which I just find really wild.
Oh my gosh, that's how I survived my whole teenage years was theater, just being a theater, like
Yeah,
finding my home in theater. Yeah, can't
right.
imagine.
And so I've seen actors on social media doing the high school theater kind of thing, and I'm like, that's not the culture I grew up with. Like, and I know it's very
Yeah,
specific in America. Like, I mean, there are American creators that I'm looking at, and I think more like Glee and like things like that. But
right.
I don't know that, so I couldn't ever do content that was about being at school and having that culture because I
Yeah,
never had it. you know
yeah,
I just
totally.
never had it. So it's for me, it's always from in a professional setting. And like I do say theater kids because I think there are certain archetypes that you work with as a
Yeah,
professional
yeah,
that have those habits and those things that they feel like they embody, but actually
yeah,
they're just being a version of themselves that's not
yeah,
quite authentic.
yeah, totally.
But yeah, so yeah, I think that'd be the only thing that
Yeah, makes a lot of
I
sense.
wished I'd had. Yeah.
Totally. What were some of the first projects that you got that really like solidified this career path for you?
Well, I guess my first job, like I got Spring Awakening, the UK tour Spring Awakening, um,
Which is
on the day,
another incredible show. Oh my
like
gosh.
incredible show. And I
Yeah,
was lucky
so
enough that
different.
I did it at college, just as an in-house sort of project. And so obviously I loved it and I saw it as well in the West End and I really enjoyed it. And so when we did it, I fell in love with it even more. And then I found out that they were casting um, the tour, and so I just put myself up for the part that I played at college, which is not my casting at all. I put myself up for Ernst,
Mm,
because that's what I played at college. Because they challenge you like that, they give you parts that you might not necessarily play, just so you can really tap into
yeah,
different areas.
right.
And so they were like, "No, we see you more as an Otto," and I was like, "Otto?" I was like, "What?" But then I was like, whatever. If that's what you see me as. And I did my auditions, and on the day of my showcase, which is the final performance you do at college for agents and things, I got a call saying that I'd booked it. And so I went in, and
Wow.
I know it's wild. And I went into the theater and told the staff, and they were like, okay. They just weren't supportive. They just didn't, they weren't kind. They weren't like, there was no celebration. Because I guess maybe part of them thought, okay, well, today's not about you. Today's about everybody. You know, and I didn't go in screaming and shouting. I spoke to them individually, but
Oh
I think that was the way,
no.
yeah, the way that I was trained was very like, you were just sort of like beaten down all the time and you were never really celebrated.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
which I had to work hard to get over, but we'll maybe get
Yes.
to that. Um, but yeah, so I went in and I was like, I put this job. So when I went for my agent meetings, I was like, just FYI, I have actually booked a job, so I will be going on to do that, and that made their life easier. You know, they were like, "Cool, you're
Mm,
already working, great."
yeah.
So we've already got, you know, you come from this great school, you're already working. That's just unique selling points that we can just use if we want to push you for jobs. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that I guess that working from the very first day I could really helped. But then of course Mormon helped for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
um, get me seen for a lot of things, but yeah, I think I don't know. I just feel like I made friends with a lot of people, and people saw me in a lot of things, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
obviously my first job was very definitive because it meant I could
Yeah.
learn, and I met some of my best friends now from that job. You know,
Yeah.
one of my very best
Mm,
friends was from that show, so I'm very
wow.
grateful for it. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and acting as a career path is not a meritocracy. It's not like you just keep building on the time that you've put in. It's like you're either on top of the world or you're like waiting for your next job.
yeah.
How do you handle that? What's that like for you? How do you manage your emotional health and the highs and lows of acting?
Okay, so pandemic aside,
Yeah.
I the longest period of time I had been out of work was 9 months. 7
Oh.
months of that was a choice. So I
Mm,
said, I do not want to be seen for anything during this period of time because
mm,
I was working on lots of different things and I wanted to be secure in my finances and make sure that I was earning consistent wages so that I could get on the property ladder, so that I could do lots of successful things for me, including, you know, lots of personal things that were going on at the time. And so that was a choice, right? And then I was like, oh, it was a long time, but I was doing all these other things and I felt really preoccupied with all of that. Skip forward a few years, and this right now is the longest period of time I've ever been out of work. Again, it's not
mm,
completely through choice because I am still trying to get work, but I'm trying, and I've given myself 18 months with, you know, me and my agent have decided we've got a plan for 18 months of trying to move away from musical theatre and into sort of straight theatre. I've done a few plays and things, which
mm.
is wonderful, and TV and film.
Okay.
Now, that's something that I kept quiet for a while because I thought that people might judge me and be like, you're
Mm,
deluded, because I'm not deluded. I'm aware that that's really difficult to just try and go, well, I want to do TV now. I'm not running away from musical theatre, but I think in order for you to be taken seriously, you have to really try and commit to it. And that means that there are a lot of opportunities, and I've kept a tally of them on my phone that I've had to turn away auditions or offers or availability checks or these things for projects that I'm like, that is not part of the plan right now.
mm.
So this right now is the period of time, the longest period of time I've been out of work, and it's partly through choice, but obviously not through choice. Like obviously, I want to
Yeah.
be booking the work I want, but I just found myself on the last couple of musicals that I've done feeling a bit unfulfilled,
Mm,
um, and feeling like I want to step away from that, and I love it. I'm never more emotional than when I'm singing.
mm.
Even though I don't love singing, that's probably why I'm emotional while I'm doing it. Like I'm never more sort of like emotionally connected than when I'm singing on stage and I'm doing acting through song. But I do think I have a skill set that some musical theatre performers don't have because of their training or because of just their style,
Yeah. Our
stylistically,
preference. Yeah.
were yeah, or preference, right? That I'm very subtle, very naturalistic, and it lends itself to a different medium that I want to explore. And I'm
Totally.
terrified, don't get me wrong.
Totally.
Like, if I booked a TV job tomorrow, I would still be like, cool, I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I've
Mm.
debated retraining, I've debated all this other stuff, but we're just trying to give it a go. We're trying to give it a go.
Yes.
So in answer to your question, right now is the only time I've ever been pursuing work but turning down opportunities at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas
yeah, yeah.
before, I was chasing those opportunities and then not booking them and fine. And you
Yeah,
just get used to the rejection. At
I
least
get
I
it.
have just got used to it. So this is a weird one where I'm like, I've gone through waves of being like, I will take anything right now.
Mm,
I am desperate to be in a rehearsal room. I'm desperate to be in that world,
mm-hmm,
but I have to remember the goal. I have to
mm-hmm.
remember the goal because if I just succumb to the I don't know the joy of that, I might find myself regretting not sticking to the goal. And who knows, in a few months' time, when I hit that 18-month goal mark, that'll be 9 months. Will it be 9 or 8 months? I'll be like, give me anything. I will be like, give me anything.
Yeah,
Truly give me
yeah,
anything. But I have to say I committed to that plan. And
yeah,
my agent is working her butt off for me. She
yeah.
is
Heck yeah.
submitting me for the right things. She's really working her butt off. And I'm really grateful for her, that she's so supportive and that she believes in me too, that she
Yes.
believes that I can
Yeah,
and should work in
yeah.
television as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have you ever read the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks?
I
Have you ever read
haven't.
that? It's a
No.
really great book. For anyone listening, it's a really great book to pick up. But he talks about the difference between your zone of excellence and your zone of genius, and how a lot of people will stay in their zone of excellence out of comfort when they feel that call or that pull to move towards their zone of genius. But it's terrifying. That's why it's called the big leap, is because a lot of people will stay like, well, I'm doing pretty well here. I'm pretty good at it. Like, I'm making money. I have opportunities. But it sounds like what you're doing is you're really doubling down on like, no, I know that there's more for me. I know that like I actually have something to offer in this more expansive space for me. And
Mhm.
that's so powerful. What an incredible story to look back on and be like, no, I really believed in myself. I really gave it my all. And you have, I mean, I know that you have an actual plan of 18 months, but you really have all the time in the world.
Right,
And
and
yeah,
that's the thing, and maybe if nothing happens in that space, if I don't book any of those jobs in this time, the next job that I book, there might be a different attitude that I have for sure. I'll be so grateful, but a different work ethic that is all about using that to help springboard me that I've never used before. I
absolutely.
haven't really ever used my previous opportunities to springboard me onto the next, not really.
Yeah.
I haven't gone out of my way to invite people to
Yeah.
say, come and see me in this project,
Mm,
because I felt as well some of the projects I'm like, I don't want to bring this casting director for this amazing Netflix TV show to come and see me in this thing which is so far removed from that. Like, how can they
mm,
possibly see me do what
mm-hmm. You
they
know
might
you
need
can
for
do.
that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, like, then I go, but I feel like I'd be wasting their time because it'd be like, cool, I see you can do goofball, silly best friend, but I need you to be like
Right.
broody, hard done by, you know, I don't know, like loser.
Yeah.
Like, I need you to,
Yeah.
I need to see that. So it's like my agent's great at bringing stuff, bringing people and inviting people, but it's hard sometimes. You're doing a role, you're like, also, this is a side aspect of it, is that like I do believe I can do both. Like, I
Yeah.
spent the majority of my career to
In
start with just doing
training.
comedy,
Yeah. Yeah.
being the fat best friend,
Yeah.
being that I'm really typecast and enjoying that and
Yeah.
being known for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I was like, but I can do the other stuff
Yeah.
and I'm really good at the other stuff too.
Yeah.
And so the best role for me, one of the best roles I ever did was a play called Lardo, where I played that person who had this big persona, a wrestler, pro wrestler, and he was the Joker and he was a clown and they did all this stuff. But then he also had that one scene where he broke the audience, where he
Mm,
completely broke everyone because he was so vulnerable. And I'm like,
yes.
I'm really proud that I'm able to do that. Like, and
Yeah.
so it's hard. It's hard, and like I haven't been seen television wise for anything that goes back to my roots. So it goes back to that comedy, that silly comedy. And maybe when that script comes in, I'll be like, this is what I need to do. Like, I don't know whether I
Yeah.
need to start again. Anyway, this is a
Totally.
conversation for my agent, really. But
It's great.
like it is brave, and I'm trying
Yeah.
to give myself as much credit as I can, whilst keeping tabs of the opportunities I've sort of let go,
Yeah.
and knowing that by the end of this year I could still have booked an incredible job, and
Absolutely.
I'll dive straight back in when I can. Yeah,
It's only March. You have
yeah,
so much time.
so
Yeah,
much time.
and when you really believe in yourself and you really believe in your dream, no is the most powerful word that you can have, because you're saying no to all of these opportunities, but it's because you have this really deep belief in yourself for something different,
Yeah,
and that's so
yeah.
powerful. So powerful. So I'm wondering
Awesome.
about some of your favorite projects that you've done. I think I remember a most embarrassing moment that had to do with Elder Cunningham. Is that right?
Possibly when I fell over, did I fall
Is
over on
that what it
stage, or
was?
was that?
Yes.
Yeah, but there was not. There was. I've had lots of embarrassing moments, but
Well, being an
um,
actor too, you are literally putting yourself like in very vulnerable, exposed
yeah,
positions. So you're setting yourself up for lots of those things.
yeah. Like I've had like in Mormon, I there's one point where I'm supposed to stab Darth Vader with a lightsaber, and I did that moment, and it's Elder Cunningham. It's the end of Act One, and Elder Cunningham's doing this big song, and it's this big sort of hero moment, and stab Darth Vader with the lightsaber, and I slip on his cape, and I'm just on my back, and I'm like, I'm supposed to still be singing, so I'm still singing on my back, thinking, what am I doing? Everyone just see me fall flat on my back, and I'm like, I need to get up and just carry on, and it felt like a lifetime. It probably wasn't, but I was like, what the hell am I doing? And I was like scrambling to get back. I was just sort of there on my back for like I don't know how long, and I crawl back onto my all fours and start walking and get back up. And I forget the choreography for the next bit, and all the ensemble join me, and I'm trying to be at the front of this choreography at the front. And yeah, so I did have that was highly embarrassing, and the cast for the most part just laughed, which was
Oh
great,
my
really
gosh.
humbling. And there's not really much you can do about it, And if there's a part that's going to fall over and get a laugh for that, then it's Cunningham.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah, I've had auditions where I've gone in and been sweating, and I had sweat down the butt crack of my chinos, and I was so embarrassed. And then, of course, truly, of course, the director was like, "Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to start facing the back, and you're going to turn." And I was like, when do you ever face the back and turn around and deliver your line? Like, you never do that. And I was like, this is so
No.
embarrassing.
Oh my
Truly,
gosh.
truly mortifying. Yeah, it was a lot. But those things are just they keep
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
grounded, and they're nice anecdotes for podcasts.
There. Yeah, and I do think that it's inspiring to for people to have those really embarrassing moments and that not keep them from still showing up fully. So
Yeah, for
they're helpful
sure.
in that way. So what are some of your like absolute favorite moments of being an actor so far? Like absolute
Okay,
favorite moments.
so I used to use a little cognitive behavioral therapy trick when the first time I ever sort of felt depressed and depression,
Uh-huh.
and I had to think of a moment in time that I'll never forget that brought me joy, and it was the time I did my first bow of my West End debut, and so that moment
Mm.
is ingrained through habitually
Uh-huh.
thinking about it, that
Yeah.
that was why I chose it. And so I'll never forget that night and that moment, and the response that we had for this show, creating a role in the West End, and it being my debut, just like wonderful. So I'll never forget that. That's been a highlight. Um, Playing Cunningham is definitely a career highlight. I played a character called Ferris in a show called Eugenius, which was kind of a cult hit over here. And that really took me from a play because Mormon had also subsequently knocked my confidence a lot, which is a whole
Mm.
separate thing. There was stuff that went down in that contract that just wasn't okay,
Mm.
like really not acceptable. And I found myself again doing Eugenius because I was playing a character who was so confident in himself, even though he was he wasn't a loser. In fact, he wasn't a loser because of that, but he was treated like a loser.
Mm.
And he was so sure of himself and so confident, and the amount of people that resonated with him and really took comfort from him, and it really put me in a place where I was like, wow, like playing a character really does have the ability to really have an effect on people. I don't know that I had ever had that where I'd watched a character and been like, yeah, that's me, or that resonates with me, or I'd never really come at it from that because I think I've always been an actor, right? So I'm more thinking about being moved as a whole and
Mm-hmm.
not about how I can really identify with the character. And so yeah, that was a really defining moment of my
Mm-hmm.
life. Is playing that role and the response,
Wow.
and not because everyone loved it, not just because it was like because there are shows that I've done that not a lot of people saw that I would do that show again in a heartbeat. But surely that show and that response for the people, the fans of that show, and that it affected, that was really a highlight. And just like getting to do, play a really amazing part in a play that was at in a theatre called the Mill at Sonning, which is like a sort of, it's like your ticket price includes a meal, and you have a meal and then you go into the theatre, and so the theatre show starts quite late, but you still get like a full show. And I was playing this role who got to die on stage, get shot in the chest and have a blood pack, and like do all that action man stuff, but also play a character that was really vulnerable and had the capacity of a child, even though he was in his
Mm.
20s. Um, and being that close to an audience in that intimate setting, that for me was a defining moment in my career too. Like being able to do that and not really thinking about it beforehand. I wasn't really thinking, how am I going to tackle this? I just booked the job because it seemed like an interesting part, and then I was like, oh shit, I need to like actually get into the mindset of someone who is, disabled, mentally
Mm. Mm-hmm.
disabled. Um, so yeah, so that was a career sort of defining moment for me as well. There's been lots of little amazing things, performing at the Sydney Opera House. I'll never forget that. That was incredible. Like there's so
Wow.
many. I've been
Yeah.
very very lucky with the experiences I've had for sure.
Incredible. Well, I wanted to talk about your relationship with social media because it's a huge barrier for a lot of people in there putting themselves out there. And I think, like, one thing that maybe even older creatives are learning the most is that no one's going to discover you. I mean, possibly anything could happen, but we're not in that time where, you're going to just get discovered. Like, the most successful creatives that are coming up really do have a robust relationship with social media. And that's something that you do really, really well. So can you talk about, like, you talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but what's your relationship with social media like, and how did you decide that, like, this is something I actually want to do as a means of, like, putting myself out there?
So first of all, I never came at it from that perspective, and now when I feel like that's the goal of getting seen, I feel super anxious.
Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah.
the
Okay.
content that I make now has to come from a place where I'm feeling creatively fulfilled and I'm enjoying what I'm putting out there, so that if it doesn't get viewed a lot of
Mm,
times, I'm still proud of it, right?
yeah.
Because as soon as I start putting stuff out there
Yeah.
that I'm not massively proud of, and then it doesn't get views or it doesn't get the engagement that people tend to want, I might start feeling shit about it. So I've always tried to be really good at not putting the emphasis on numbers, not putting the emphasis on followers or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I came back onto social media. I used to have a social media account that for years I tried to grow back then, and I tried to be an influencer, right? I tried to act like one, and I wanted free stuff, and I wanted to look like I was doing ads, and I wanted to look like I got all my shit together, but I didn't have my shit together. I was a mess as a human being, and that
Mm,
was trying to fulfill a void. And I was using social media to act out, and I was using social media to do lots of negative things in my life, right? But wanting to
yeah.
put across this. Anyway, I deleted that account when the pandemic happened. I went through a whole process of relearning who I was. And I came back on because I said I needed it for work. And for the most part, I did. But I was also kind of just being a bit nosy. And I started with an emphasis of posting about my mental health, and I wanted to come on and be like, hey, for those of you who followed me before, hello, welcome back. I'm here. I'm not the same person as I was. I've grown. I'm growing. I'm hurt. I'm learning all this stuff in therapy. I was going through intense psychotherapy every week, and every Friday I would post a selfie, again, something I never really did before, and it would just be a selfie and then just a massive caption of the stuff I'd learned in therapy, because I wanted to pass
Wow.
on the
Yes.
knowledge that I was
I get
gaining.
that. Yeah.
And so now I'm getting back into that and trying to do a little bit more of that every month. Once a month, I'll just do a grid post where I talk about how my month's been, what I've learned this month, how I'm doing, because I like people to remember that we're all multifaceted, we're all human beings, we're all navigating life. And so now people might think, wow, you've got good engagement or you're getting lots of views. And I'm still a micro influencer in the grand scheme of life, right? So like, I don't really have that many followers. I don't really have
In the
that
grand
much
scheme of
engagement.
things, you don't, but you have a good amount of followers. Yeah.
But
But I
but
hear what
yeah,
you're
but
saying.
like
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And so for some people, I think I say that to sort of not sound big headed, And
Sure.
we're just
Yeah, I
aware
get
that
that.
what I'm about to say might be like, people might look at it and be like, God, this guy gets loads of views and he gets loads of comments and people love his stuff and I think it's really funny and he's, but like I also want it to be like people to know that you might have seen me post 2 videos this month and they might have made you really laugh, but also this month I've been worrying about this, that, and the other thing,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
doing all this other stuff, and it's not like whoa, I'm so relatable. Look at me. It's actually I really, really, really want people to be able to acknowledge the shit that's going on inside them.
Yeah.
Like it's so important. That is more important to me than anything. And so I often say on my social media, my DMs are open. If you need to tell someone a secret, something's bothering you, just tell me. I'm not a therapist,
Mm,
but just tell me, like, because it starts a ball rolling. As soon as you said the thing out loud and you say, I'm worrying about this thing, or I did this thing and I'm really ashamed of it, or whatever, then I'm not going to be like, you need to do this. I'm going to be like, thank you so much for telling me. Is there, like, why do you think you did? Like, I might start a conversation about it and it might help. And
yeah.
so that is really, really, really important to me. And that's why that's how I started my social media journey. And then
Wow. Yeah.
TikTok happened. And on TikTok, I was doing all the funny stuff. It was all just doing the silly stuff on TikTok. And then I realized that I could migrate that over to Instagram.
Hmm.
And then Instagram actually took hold of it and it became for me, a much more fulfilling app to use as a result, because it reminded me that there is more to me than just my mental health journey once I sort of
I see. Yeah.
was overcoming that, and sort of then the other facets of me started coming in and I was like, oh no, I can do both. I absolutely can do
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
And so then I started posting these silly videos and people were enjoying them and I was like, this is great. And then like people I admire, like people that I'm a huge fan of,
Does Lin
like
Manuel
started
Miranda
following
follow
me.
you?
He does, and it's so
That's
strange. And like,
insane.
yeah,
That's
it's and like
insane.
sometimes he'll just crop up and comment and be like, I think one time he was like, Dan never misses, and I'm like, dude, I like
Did you
what?
get that tattooed immediately on your
Well,
back?
I was just a bit like, this is cool. But then with that, once I knew that he followed me, I stopped posting
I see. Well,
because I
yeah.
was
I mean, I
like,
could see the like pause that you would
I've
need
got
to
to
take.
impress Lin-Manuel Miranda. I have
Yeah.
got to impress one of the most prolific musical theatre stars in the world, right? In history, perhaps. And so I was like, I need to do something to impress. And then I started having a toxic
Getting
relationship with
it,
it, where I was like,
getting in your head.
totally in my head. And so I stopped posting, and I went through a few weeks where I was like, I physically can't do it.
Yes.
Um, but then there were other people that I was a huge fan of, like Denise Gough, who's a
Mm.
fantastic actor who started commenting on stuff, and I was like, not actually her, not actually her. And then she like messaged me and left me a voice note. She gave me her number, and I was like, this is not happening. Like, I'm a huge fan of you. I admire you, not just for your craft, but your work ethic. And then we went for coffee, and like, I got to pick her brains a bit, and we get on, and it's wonderful. And so there's so many like amazing opportunities that have come from it, and that's why I mentioned my peers, right? Because those are the people that I feel it has more of an impression on me, that if
Yes.
someone enjoys it and they're
Yeah.
they understand, when people say you can really tell that you can act, and I'm like, I never made these videos to show people I could act. I never
Yeah.
made these
Yeah.
videos
Oh, that's
to
so
show people
funny.
I could act. Like,
Yeah.
never, not once at the top. Because if it did, they wouldn't have been a
Yeah.
success.
Hmm.
People wouldn't have enjoyed them because
Yeah.
there would have been something about them that felt self-indulgent.
Yeah.
And so there's been maybe one or two occasions where I've gone, maybe I could add a little moment in here. And then I try the moment and it feels so gross. And then I just improvise around it, because for the
Yeah.
most part, I just set the camera up and I just roll the camera for 20 minutes and I just say a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just get into I have a list of things. I'm like, oh, this person, this person. And then I'm like, okay, let's try this person. And I just do a bunch of things. And so a lot of the stuff that you're seeing is improvised. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it comes across so fresh,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but I do go through phases where I'm like, nothing's tickling me right now. Nothing's making me feel, and so I have to sit with that silence and be like, it's okay if you don't post. A lot of
Yeah.
people, because I don't want to be an influencer,
Mm.
right? I don't want to be. My agent had this conversation with me where she said, and she was being really kind, but I took it kind of badly. Where she said, "Do you want to be known as the guy from social media, or do you want to be known as the guy from Netflix TV show?"
Mm.
And I was like, I hear you. I know what you're saying. And of course, the Netflix thing, or of course, the TV show, or the film, or the play, or the whatever. But this is a creative void that I'm filling
Yes.
by not working.
Yeah, both.
And
The answer
so
is both.
I, and
Yeah.
so but I also have known influencers who, when they really tap into that work, and I really could, if I studied and I posted every single day and I did stuff that, I probably could grow my followers even more, and I could really get more views and could do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then I would be acting like an influencer. And I know actor influencers who have turned into influencers, and they're not getting the same projects. They are getting invited to loads of events. They're doing all this wonderful stuff, but they're not doing the thing that they are.
Yeah.
They're not doing the thing that makes them, that creates a huge part of who they are.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for them, because I'm
Mm.
like, you've got this amazing following and your videos are sick. They're so good. But then they're in my DMs being like, I'm not getting seen for anything. Nobody will,
Mm.
will take me seriously as an actor. And
Mm.
I just find it so, and so I'm scared of that.
Mm.
Um, that's not to say that I couldn't potentially grow my stuff, and it will slowly grow and I will continue putting out
Sure.
videos, but it
It's
has to
just
come
you're
from a
working
place
through
of
it. Yeah.
creative fulfillment. And that's why I had a YouTube channel, and I still have one, but like, the YouTube thing was not, I missed the boat for YouTube. Of course I have. Like, there's no era of YouTube that exists more than the 2000 and, when was it, 2010,
Yeah.
and that was when it was really blowing up for a lot of people, and they were able to move on and have different careers as a result of that, like social media careers or whatever. But I did it because I love editing videos, and I
Yeah.
love vlogging, and I loved filming stuff, and that process of editing, and it was creative. And for me, it's always been about creativity.
Yeah.
And so if you're somebody who creates videos and they don't get big engagement, it's hard for me to be, because a lot of my original videos didn't do very well, and some of them still don't do massively well. But you have to come out, you have to just commit, really commit
Yeah.
to the creative fulfillment of it,
Mm-hmm.
and not get tied up with who's going to see this, how is it going to be perceived, all that stuff. It just has to,
Totally.
you have
Yep.
to enjoy it. You
Yeah.
totally have to enjoy it.
Absolutely. So it sounds
Yeah.
like your biggest lesson and the biggest success that you've had with social media has actually come from you not needing social media, which is a very healthy, integrated approach.
Absolutely. And there are times where I go, oh my God, I've just scrolled for ages, and then I just delete the app.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't need you right now. I
Yeah.
can't. I need to read a book.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, I read so many books. I went 2 years without any social media, like, and I didn't really use my laptop or my computer at night or anything like that. And I read. And so now I'm able to put it away and not worry, because I don't want to be an influencer and succumb to all those pressures that you often hear, like, you must post 3 times a day, you must post videos over a minute, you
Ugh.
must
Yeah.
have a niche, like, and those people who do that will be a success, period. They will
Yeah.
be a huge social media success. But I'm like, that doesn't appeal to me, so therefore I will step back from that the stress of that, and
Yeah.
I will only post when I'm satisfied to do it. But yeah, for sure, not needing it has been amazing. And don't get me wrong, I've had one audition since the videos have done well, and since people like yourself have viewed them and enjoyed them, where the first thing the director said to me was, I love your videos on Instagram.
Mm.
And I instantly in that moment was like, I'm either going to book this job so fast, or it's going to be a shambles. And it was a shambles, because
Mm.
I wasn't doing what I do on Instagram.
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
was doing something else that they hadn't seen me do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could tell as soon as I did the piece that they were like, no, no, thank you. I could just
Mm.
tell, and I was like, "Damn it!" And so now, if anyone says it to me in the future, I'm gonna have to just be like, "That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean
Yeah, you
anything. Just
can't.
because someone likes your videos,
No.
it's just a compliment. It doesn't.
Yeah,
There's no. It hasn't necessarily got me in the room. Maybe it has, and if it
totally.
has, wonderful. But then I've got another opportunity to then show them what I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can trust what lights you up. What lights you up will lead you home. And so it might not make sense to like the algorithm or the agents or the casting directors or whatever what you're trying to do, but if you're following that thing that lights you up and you are contributing, I think, with your humor and your warmth and the like goodness of who you are in such a meaningful way, and you just keep holding on to that belief of the dreams that you have, like it will happen. It will work out for you. It doesn't have to make sense to the whole world. But
Yeah,
what I love about your relationship with social media, especially now after talking to you, is that you're not using it for validation. That's actually something that you've worked hard not to do. And that's why this stuff flows out of you so beautifully. So
yeah.
amazing.
And And don't get me wrong, I love it when people share my stuff. Like, I will message every single person who shares it. Sometimes I'm sitting there for ages, like, and and I message everybody, say thank you so much for watching, and I mean it every single time. I mean it because it helps. It helps other people
Yeah.
find it because I want my people to see it. I want the people who are going to enjoy that stuff to stay with me. That's the
Yes.
community I want to build.
Yes.
You know, I don't want a random person from God knows where who doesn't really understand the world that I work in, that doesn't really get what it is that I'm doing, but laughed at one of my videos to be like, like, great if you're on board, but like the meaningful stuff is like the people who get it and the people who really know the world, you know.
Yeah.
And that will
Totally.
be limited, right? Because I'm not doing mass appeal. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing the mass appeal, and it will be limited. And I'm so fine with that.
Yeah.
And I would love, like, to walk into a rehearsal room on the first day and to know that some of those actors will have seen my stuff and be like, "Oh, I saw that video and it was really funny."
Yeah.
That is the biggest compliment, the biggest word of affirmation you can give me is like something you
Yes.
contributed to the world that was within the world that we create. I enjoyed it. That for me, I'm like winning.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, for sharing everything that you've shared. I'm even more inspired and endeared to you than I was before you came on.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering, where can people find you?
On social media, you can find me at Dan Buckley Actor across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Um, Otherwise, you can find me in the heart of Scotland, surviving, just surviving and thriving. And
That's it.
people have said to me, what are you working on at the moment? And I'm like, myself, because I'm
Amen to
like,
that.
truly,
Yes.
no, but like truly, like it's
Yeah.
hard to ask an actor that, but I mean it when I am. Every day is a
Oh,
learning day for me. Still,
it's going to make
mental
the
health is a
biggest difference.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
absolutely.
really feel like and I also don't believe that I could have created these sort of social media videos and stuff authentically if I hadn't gone through this whole
Mm.
trajectory of mental health and working on that and making sure I was being authentic to me. So yeah, it's been a blessing, really has.
Well, the world has definitely gained so much from your journey with loving yourself and emotional health. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have you, everybody. I hope you have such a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Heal Create podcast. If you have enjoyed this podcast at all, we would love if you would subscribe, rate it, send it to your friends. That would really help us get this message out, this message of empowering people towards emotionally sustainable creativity. Also, we have a PDF for you. So there's an exercise that I created called Inspiration Mirroring. And basically, it is for those that are looking to get acquainted with their authentic, truest self, based on the idea that whatever inspires you embodies your potential. And so if you want to get started on that journey today of really understanding who you are at your core, the person that you hope you are, then you can go to the link in my bio on Instagram or go to my website and download that PDF. I think that's all. Have a beautiful day.